Hello, YouTube. This will be the second time that I've actually posted this particular video because I did it once, taking just under 10 minutes, and the whole thing had no audio. So I had to pull it and start over. I've been promising to do a video on prophecy. It's actually going to turn out to be at least 2 videos because I sifted through over 100 pages of information. The links actually for the sites that I used are up here in the video description. And that plus Wikipedia are the source information for all of this. I'm going to read it because it's long and there's a lot of detail in it that I don't want to get wrong, and I don't want to ramble too long. For nearly 2,000 years, since even before the advent of Christianity, people who claim prophetic powers have predicted the end of the world. According to the so-called Gospels, Jesus himself predicted the end. This was before the revelation to John the Apostle, so Armageddon was not part of his prophecy. But Jesus told followers that some of them in his presence would not die before he had returned. Matthew 16:28, Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here which shall not taste of death till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. Now, he wasn't talking about just appearing again in 3 days. He was talking about coming back in his kingdom. Mark 9, verse 12, And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that there be some that stand here, which shall not taste of death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. And in Luke 9, verse 27, But I tell you of a truth, there be some standing here, which shall not taste of death, till they see the kingdom of God. Didn't happen, did it? Now, you could call these pre-Christian prophecies, since Christianity had to wait for Paul to become the cult, which would spread into a vast 2 billion person religion. Hundreds of messiahs and prophets have cropped up since that time, and I'll cull them to just a few for the purpose of this video. Now to the Common Era, CE, I'll say, although some people prefer to say Christian era, and look at its predictions. Between 44 and 46 CE, a magician named Theudas, claiming to be the Messiah, led a large group of a few hundred people into the desert, intending to part the waters of the river Jordan, Moses fashion, and lead them away. Cuspius Thaddeus, the Roman procurator of Judea, didn't like that idea and sent Roman horse soldiers after him. The soldiers caught up with him and, according to Josephus, killed a large number of Theudas' followers, captured Theudas himself, severed his head, and carried it back to Jerusalem. Scratch one Messiah and one end-of-the-world prophecy. 500 CE. The antipope Hippolytus and a Christian academic named Sextus Julius Africanus predicted Armageddon for this year. 1000 CE. Christian predictors seem to like round numbers. Several predictions were made for this year. Many European Christians had predicted the end of the world for January 1st, 1000. As the year approached, Christian armies waged war against pagan countries in northern Europe, hoping to convert the people by force, if necessary, before the return of Jesus in the year 1000. A panic among Christians who did hear of the end prompted their giving their property to the church. But because of the low level of education at the time, a great many people didn't even know what year it was, so the panic was not widespread. Nevertheless, when Jesus didn't return and the church did not return the gifts, a number of believers criticized the church. The church's response? Exterminate a few heretics. In May of that year, the 1000 CE, the body of Charlemagne was disinterred on Pentecost because of a legend that an emperor would rise from his sleep to fight the Antichrist. It doesn't say when they returned him to his grave. In 1794, we're skipping a few years here. As I said, there are literally hundreds of prophecies. Charles Wesley, one of the founders of Methodism, predicted doomsday for that year. In 1832, Joseph Smith, who was the founder of Mormonism, predicted the end of the world for 1890 because in prayer he heard a voice saying that if he lived to the age of 85, he would see the face of the Son of Man. He was assassinated by a mob in 1844, but wouldn't have seen the return of Jesus in 1890 anyway. Sometime in the 1930s, William Miller, who founded the Millerite movement, predicted the second coming for March 1843, based on calculations of dates from Genesis, Daniel, and Revelation. Later, he refined the calculations to arrive at October 22nd, 1844. By the time the prophecy was proven failed, many of Miller's 100,000 or so followers had sold their farms, their homes, and left their jobs to spread the word. The result was what was known as the Great Disappointment. I'll bet. In 1850, Ellen White, the founder of the Seventh-day Adventist movement, made the first of many predictions of the end of the world, all of which failed. She told attendees of an 1856 conference that some of them would still be alive when the Second Coming occurred. Sound familiar? All were dead by the early 1900s, creating a problem for the church in explaining the failed prophecy. Catastrophic events and wars always prompted prophecies of the end. In 1666, it was thought that the Great Fire of London was a signal of the beginning of the end. Likewise, the American Civil War, the Great War, and World War II were thought to be signals of the soon-to-come end. 1914 CE, with the start of the Great War, was thought to be by many the beginning of the end. Jehovah's Witnesses, that's the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society, predicted that year for Armageddon based on calculations of numbers in the book of Daniel. They took the times written of in chapter 4 to be 360 days each, totaling 2,520 days. Then, taking the days for years, measured from the starting date of 607 BCE, they arrived at 1914. When Armageddon didn't arrive, they predicted 1915. Then 1918, then 1920, perhaps because of the great influenza pandemic, then 1925, 1941, 1975, 1994, among others. The 1975 date was thought to be especially important because taking the chronology from the creation of Adam, somehow they knew this was in 4026 BCE, and calculating 1,000 years for each day of the creation week, they concluded that the 6,000th anniversary of the creation of Adam would come in 1975. Maybe, but Armageddon didn't. Herbert W. Armstrong, founder of the Worldwide Church of God, predicted that the day of the Lord would come sometime in 1936. When that failed to materialize, he estimated that it would be between 1972 and 1975. Still wrong. Moses David, founder of the religious sect the Children of God, predicted that a comet would strike the earth sometime in the 1970s and destroy all life in the United States. Later, he predicted that in 1986 the Battle of Armageddon would occur, during which Russia would defeat Israel and the United States and set up a worldwide dictatorship. And then in 1993, according to him, Jesus would return. Well, he is dead, but the rest of us are still here. Hal Lindsey, author of The Late Great Planet Earth, predicted that the rapture would come in 1988, one generation or 40 years after the creation of the State of Israel. Previously, he had predicted the rapture to occur before December 31st, 1981. Some people like to mention the prophecy of Mother Shipton, a 16th century mystic, many of whose prophecies are believed to have been written long after her death. According to this prophecy, quote, "The world to an end shall come in 1991. Shipton, of course, turned out to be wrong. Again. Well, that's it for this video. More to come in Chapter 2.